Hello fellow haters of the blue, and welcome to my channel, and also welcome to Heavy Contrast Marines, a series where I try to paint a space marine to the highest level possible using just contrast paints and highlights. And on this episode I'm going to paint the ward bearers. So let's get cracking. As you can see, we're starting from a base coat of Wraithbone spray, and what I will do now is do a layer of Flesh Series Red all over the armor. As always with contrast paints, apply this in a vertical motion because that's where we want our shadows to be, in that direction. I am going to do quite a thick layer, and you may see that I just do one section of the armor. And now what I will do is look for places where the paint is pulling too much, and I will just absorb it with a clean brush. While you're doing this, don't worry too much about the other pieces that are not red armor, because we will cover all those with a new base coat very soon, and it's more important that you take care that the contrast layer is as smooth as possible. Our layer of Flesh Series Red is now mostly dry, and I'm going to take black Templar and I'm going to do some freehand on some of the panels. The ward bearers usually have some runes on some lines inscribed on their armor, so I'm just going to take black Templar. I'm going to freehand some of those lines. Don't worry, the line is a bit thicker than you might want it in the first place, because we can always thin it down later on using our highlight colors. Here on his power fist that he has some lines already inscribed, I will just fill them with black Templar so they match the rest of the armor, just like that. And I'm going to keep drawing some symbols on his armor where I see fit. Before highlighting all the armor panels, I'm going to take care of the rest of the messy steps, and the first one is base coating all the rubber joints using CORAX white. This is quite simple with Chaos Space Marines, because the trim of the armor helps quite a lot in being neat in this step. Our layer of CORAX white is now completely dry, and I'm going to move into GRYPH-CHARGER grey. I want to apply this GRYPH-CHARGER grey over all the parts that we base coated using CORAX white. This will give a slightly colder tint to those areas, and that colder tint will show through once we apply the black Templar in the next step. The layer of GRYPH-CHARGER grey is now completely dry, and I'm going to move into black Templar as I said. And I'm going to apply a coat of black Templar over all the parts that I applied GRYPH-CHARGER grey. Our layer of black Templar is now dry, and I'm going to paint all the metal details that are not trim with LEADRELCHER. This includes these tubes here, the bolter, mechanical parts, and of course the chainmail that has hanging from his waist. The LEADRELCHER is now completely dry, and I'm going to apply a wash using black Templar and contrast medium. This is 1 part black Templar and 3 parts contrast medium. I will apply this all over the LEADRELCHER parts. While our wash of black tempera and contrast medium dries, I'm going to base coat all the trim pieces using IRONAREAKER. This is, of course, really time consuming, but there's something that just has to be done, so be patient and just go and do it. Each time I am painting a case-based marine, I wonder why anyone would submit themselves to this suffering on purpose. This is horrible. Finally, all the annoying trim is now base coated with IRONAREAKER. Now I'm going to apply a wash. This is pure GRYPH-CHARGER grey, and I will just apply this over all the parts that we base coated using GRYPH-CHARGER grey. Our wash of GRYPH-CHARGER grey is now completely dry, and now is the perfect time to highlight our red armor, because with all our washes out of the way, we don't risk ruining our highlights. And for this first highlight I'm going to use a SQUIG orange. I will just do a very thin edge highlight with this. Try to keep it as thin as you can. And of course, we have our freehand pattern. I'm going to edge highlight that as well. This can be a bit tricky, but it's a great chance to thin out any of the lines if they went a bit too thick, which can happen. Our first highlight of a SQUIG orange is now done on this side, and if you don't mind, I will just do one side for speed purposes, and then I will finish it off, of course. And for our second highlight, I'm going to do a 50-50 mix of LUGGANATH orange and a SQUIG orange. And I will do the same thin edge highlight, but more concentrated towards the highlight areas. So for example here, I will just pick the corners, and of course all the edges and towards the corners of all the panels. Our second highlight with a SQUIG orange and LUGGANATH orange is now done, and I'm going to move into pure LUGGANATH orange, and I will just do a dot highlight with this. For example, here in the freehand panels, I will just do small dots of LUGGANATH orange on the very corners. Small dots there, and of course don't forget, if you have any corners, place a dot of this there too. And now to finish off the red armor, what kind of a word bearer would he be without words? So I'm going to take pure white, and I'm just going to do some lines of text on the flatter empty panels of the armor. just like that. With all these steps on the red armor now done, I'm going to move into the rubber joints. For this I'm going to use Fenrisian Grey, and I will just pick the center of each ridge very carefully, just like that. You also want to pick these tubes connecting the different armor pieces. It's a thin edge highlight of Fenrisian Grey. Finally, for all the rubber joints, I'm going to take Ulthuan Grey, and I'm going to just do a dot highlight right in the center of our Fenrisian Grey highlight. Just do small dots of Ulthuan Grey. If you mess up a bit, don't worry, you can always use a clean brush. And if you're quick, you shouldn't have any problem. And now, with all our red and our rubber done, I'm going to take a Stormhost silver and I'm going to highlight all the metallic details that we have painted. That includes, of course, the bluish trim. I will not just do an edge highlight with this all over. But also any darker steel functional bits, like for example the knuckles that I painted here. Again, just take Stormhost silver and do an edge highlight with this. Don't forget, we also have this chainmail here. I have my brush now quite unloaded, and I will just run it very carefully parallel to the chains, and I will just pick them out like that towards the bottom. As you can see, I have now finished highlighting everything that I showed you how to do in the previous steps, and I have also base coated everything that I did not paint with CORAX white. You can see I did the loincloth, all the leather pieces and all the bone and the eyes. I also painted in the same way as the rubber ridges his gun. And now I'm going to paint all the bone details. This includes any skulls and any teeth that he has laying around his armor. For this I'm just using a skeleton horde, and I'm just going to apply a good layer of skeleton horde over those areas. Just like that. And I will also paint, as I said, his little teeth that he has growing from his armor, just like that. And of course his horns. While the skeleton horde dries, I'm going to apply a layer of 1 part wildwood and 4 parts contrast medium over his loincloth. I will of course apply it heavily and then absorb any excess that you don't want to be there, and I will also apply this over his holster here. I'm trying not to hit the leather straps that he has, but I'm not too worried because, as you will see later, if a tiny bit of this goes over them, it's not really going to be noticed. The layer of skeleton horde over his horns is now fairly dry, dry enough that I can do the next step, and then taking the same mix of 1 part wildwood and 4 part contrast medium, and I'm going to apply it over the tips here in this direction. Move your brush from the base towards the tip. That way you won't leave a big mark, a big tide line where both paints meet. If you feel the separation is too obvious, just take a clean brush and wipe away in the joint. I will do a couple of layers of this, so once this dries I will do probably another 2 coats until I have a solid dark color there on the tips. As you can see, I have my 2 extra coats of the wildwood and medium mix over the horns, and they are looking quite well. I'm really happy with them. And now I'm going to take pure wildwood and I'm going to paint the leather straps he has. So as you can see, I haven't even bothered to clean any wildwood and medium that I had over those bits, because once I do this coat, it's not even going to be noticed. Again, always go section by section, and if for some reason you apply too much contrast paint, you can always, while it's fresh, absorb it. But don't wait. If it starts drying, then you're pretty much done. With those steps done, I can now highlight everything that I just base coated except for the leather using Palette Witch Flesh. I will highlight with this his loincloth. Just do a simple edge highlight. I will also highlight with this the bone areas. Including, of course, the horns. For the horns I will concentrate the highlights more towards the base. And I will do a very thin line of this here on the top. Very thin. And now finally, for all those parts, I'm going to highlight them using pure white. Again, same highlight as we just did before, but taking this area, of course, concentrated here in the loincloth towards the top. Picking all the corners. Just do the same on the bone details. And here in the horns, I'm just going to basically do some dots and highlight here towards the bottom. And now with all those bits done, I'm going to move into finishing up the brown leather. For this I'm going to start doing a thin edge highlight with Baneblade Brown. Just pick up all the edges with the thinnest line of Baneblade Brown you can make. With that step done, now we're going to move into KARAK stone for a second highlight. And again, I will just do the same thin edge highlight, but concentrating it, of course, towards the corners of all the pouches and towards the center of the leather strips. Finally, for all the leather parts, I'm going to do a dot highlight using palette wood flesh. Very simple, just do a dot of palette wood flesh in all the corners. And here I will just pick up a dot there, here in the corners. And with the leather done, there's only one last detail left to paint, that is his eyes. And I want to paint them green because I think it's a color that will complement the red armor really well. What I will do is start applying a very thin layer of IYANDEN yellow. Just like that. This very thin yellow layer will help the green read much brighter. With the IYANDEN yellow now dry, I'm going to take warp lining and I'm going to apply a layer of this over his lenses. I will move my brush from the front of his eyes towards the back, trying to get a bit more warp lining to deposit there in the back. And the same here, dropping a bit more paint in the back. Now to highlight his eyes, I'm going to take a 50-50 mix of mood green and dawn yellow, and I'm going to apply a highlight towards the front of his eyes. Just like that. And of course, in the next eye as well. And with that highlight done, I'm now going to take pure dawn yellow and I will just do a very small highlight here on the very front of the eye. And to finish off his eyes, I'm going to take pure white and I'm going to do a small dot here at the back of his eyes. With that last step done and the base painted, our model is finished. And I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Painting red is always a pleasure for me, and I hope you also enjoyed watching it. So, as always guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Do you like my videos and want to help me make them? Well, there are several ways you can do that. You can follow me on social media. You have the links to all my social media in the description below. You can also check my affiliate links in the pinned comment of this video. Use those links in your next hobby purchase and help me without any additional cost to you. But most importantly, there is Patreon. You have the link to my Patreon in the description below and in the pinned comment of the video. Patreon helps me do all the cool projects that I want to make and helps me improve the quality of my videos. Don't be afraid, no content will ever be hidden behind a paywall, but it's a nice way to help me and you will get something back for your generosity. As I said guys, thank you very much for watching, and a special thank you to Ben Morin, Kieran O'Murthael, Victor Domen, Michael Boyer, Charles Armitage, Christophe Moret, Daniel Figueiredo, Joshua Bohannon, Ryan Mann, Oliver Pellert, Beldrain, Kevin Sulars, Kid Leonard, Leonard Lindemann, Jonathan Ekelung, Dr. V, G-Force, Eldrick H, Sasha Park, JT Butler, Manuel Vilela, Josh Simpson, Dominic Trevizo, Richard Ketkowski, Sheeny, Brett Sillinger, Mark Jarvis, Tabled Miniatures, and Gareth Smith for being the coolest persons in the planet. Be like these fine folks, join my Patreon and take control.